hopefully that clarifies the dose reconstruction a little bit. The dose reconstruction process, just so everyone is on the same page, is almost indecipherable for anyone who is not a health physicist. The external dose is not too bad. You wear a dosimeter badge, and that dosimeter badge measures how much dose you receive on the outside of your body, and consistent with the external dose reconstruction guideline, that is used to calculate external dose. That is relatively straightforward, so you have the dosimeter dose. Another part of the external dose reconstruction guideline that is relatively accessible is the missed dose. Missed dose is calculated based on the limit of detection of the dosimeter badge. And so if you have a dosimeter badge and its limit of detection is 0.1 rem, and you exchange that dosimeter badge once a month, the external dose reconstruction guideline says that for each badge exchange, the amount that falls below the limit of detection is impossible to know. And so for every 0 dosimeter badge exchange, there is an assignment of a missed dose of 0.5. So the difference between 0 and the limit of detection. When I say 0.5, I mean 0.05 because we had 0.1 as the limit of detection. So half the limit of detection is given to the worker for each dosimeter badge exchange based on half the distance between 0 and the limit of detection. This becomes important, especially early on. In the 40s, the limit of detection on dosimeter badges in the 50s was relatively high when they first came out, and the exchange frequency was relatively high. So you could have a weekly exchange frequency and a relatively high, maybe a 0.2 limit of detection. So you get 0.1 every week. That's 5.2 for every year based on the missed dose alone. So the missed dose can be a very important piece of the dose reconstruction process. What we run into is the use not of dosimeter badge results or of coworker dosimeter badge results or source term or survey results. I should say survey and then source term results. But we've run into a tendency to move to what's described as ambient dose, and that accounts for usually a negligible amount of dose. And so ambient dose is the dose you would receive if you were in your car or out of your car, next to your car in the parking lot, outside the facility. Basically, the ambient dose is the amount of radiation that is leaving the facility, leaving the boundaries of the facility, and subtracted from that the background dose. So, as you can imagine, these doses are infinitesimal. We're talking about 0.1 rem for 30 years. So we see that happening pretty regularly where there's no evidence of dosimeter badge results. And so when we read a dose reconstruction and we see that there are no dosimeter results, the health physicist very often will shift over and say, because there are no dosimeter badge results, we will use the ambient dose to provide for the dose that could have been received during that time period. we find that that increasingly is where a dose reconstruction is not properly prepared, or at least we object on those grounds. That leaves the medical dose, which is the dose imparted by x-rays. Most workers needed to have an annual x-ray. There again, those can be relatively significant in early years, and in later years, much less so.